From overcoming disabilities to building financial independence. Today's guest talks with us about how using faith and determination can help you do anything. Hello, and welcome to the My Father Said podcast, where we discuss all things faith, finance, and family. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan. I'm both a father and a son. And today we have got a very special guest, real estate investor Ed Teal. For any of you that know me personally, know our family, or maybe even have been clients for a while, you have probably heard me mention Ed before. Ed is one of the smartest people I think that I have ever met and is very successful in the real estate world. Ed also has dealt with different disabilities his whole life. And so today's whole episode, I'm just going to interview Ed. I'm going to ask him about his real estate knowledge, his business, and then we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk a little bit about some of those disabilities. So Ed, if you're all right with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Cool. All right. So like I said, you are a real estate investor. How many LLCs and how many properties would you say that you own as of today?
Well, I've got controlling interest in two LLCs. One I own 100% of, the other one I'm 50-50 with a partner. And then I have some other LLCs set up that I have a minority interest in. So basically two companies that I manage, and then the other one I'm just kind of a silent partner, so to speak. Okay.
So you've got controlling interest in two LLCs and then your minority partner in a couple of other ones. Are those all like real estate LLCs, or are they different ones?
In some form or fashion, yes. They're all tied to real estate in some way.
Cool. Awesome, man. That's awesome. And then how many properties do you or your LLCs own?
33 right now.
33 right now. So there's going to be more coming down the road?
Probably. I just went through a period of major expansion where I doubled the size of my business, so it'll be a couple of years, but down the road I may.
That'll be good. Good, man. Good. Okay. Now you've been doing real estate for how many years now?
Well, I started when I was 20, and I'll be 34 this month, so this would be 14 years this year. 14 years.
How did you get started in real estate, and why did you get started in real estate?
Well, in the 60s, my grandmother started acquiring real estate. My grandfather owned a pharmacy in Winsboro, South Carolina, and people would come in there and say, I have this farm I want to sell, I have this house I want to sell, and my grandmother started acquiring them. Well, she accumulated about 55 properties, so I started working for her, and I saved everything I could, and I knew that there were a lot of jobs that, due to my disability, I couldn't do because of my balance issues and things like that, and I knew that real estate would be a great way to generate income from home. And she was in the low-income housing business, so that's where I started. I bought a bank-owned property. When I was a sophomore in college, I had just turned 20, and I worked for her every summer when I was out, when I was off. And then after I got out of college, I worked for her for about 5 years it was about 6, I think, until I got enough of a portfolio built up to where I could live off of it. And then I've had other opportunities since then.
You bought your first property at 20 years old in college?
Yeah, well, I had done one semester of college, and I was taking more hours in college than I was advised, and I burned out. And my advisor told me, they said, you need to take time off. And I said, well, I'll use this time wisely and figure out what direction I want to go. And so I started working for my grandma, and then there was a bank-owned property. It was a brick house. It was 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and I was able to acquire it from the bank back then for like $30,000.
Oh, wow.
And so I did, and that's where it started. I was fortunate enough to borrow the money from my dad, and I paid him back in 4 years. And I held that one for about 6 or 7 years, and then I sold it on a seller finance mortgage back in 2018, and then the guy paid it off, and I've bought other properties since then, of course, but that was my first one.
That's awesome. All right, so $30,000 brick house. You've since sold it. Are you comfortable, or do you remember how much you sold that property for?
That one, well, I really didn't do much to it. I put maybe $4,000 or $5,000 in it, and I rented it for 5-6 years, and then I sold it to a guy in as-is condition for like $50,000, and then I did it on a 10-year note at 8.6% interest.
Oh gosh, okay.
So I did all right on it. Now that property's probably worth $110,000, $120,000, even though it's not in the most desirable neighborhood. But it's so it was a good deal for him, good deal for me.
Yeah. Where do you do real estate all over the state, or are you pretty local to one area?
Primarily in the Midlands, mostly in Winsboro and in the outlying areas of Columbia. What I've found is when you're a small-time investor, it's difficult to compete in the metropolitan areas because you have so many people with so much money and so many people buying for the same property that it drives up the cost, and so you're better off going into areas where there's not a lot of people buying, and you look for opportunities to make money on properties that nobody else wants, because that's where the value is.
And you think that's primarily out in Winsboro?
For now,
Okay.
but it's the same way in any rural area. People don't want to buy there because there's not a lot going on. But truthfully, with the rising cost of housing, people are moving to the more rural areas simply because the cost of housing is going up faster than people's income is going up. And so in order to live, a lot of people are moving out to more rural areas because it's more affordable.
I got you. That makes sense. When you buy properties, what kind of strategy do you use? And what I mean by that is, are you, buying and holding? Are you fixing and flipping? Are you doing single family or multifamily? What's Ed Teal's strategy?
Well, I've done a lot of single families. I've done duplexes. My general philosophy is properties that I, am all in. Let's say $35,000 or less. I hold those and I sell them on lease with the option still, and I can explain kind of how those work. I do a lease and then a separate option agreement that gives the tenant the right to buy the house at an agreed upon price, but not the obligation. And then over a period of the next 20 years, provided they pay their rent on time, I lower the strike price and the option every year. And so at the end of 20 years, I basically deed it over to them. But more times than not, you get it back. But those lower end properties that I can totally in for, say, $35,000 or less, I rent them out. Properties that I have more than that in, I flip them. And honestly, the market hasn't brought a lot of flipping opportunities in the last several years. It's been way overheated. And so I haven't had a lot of opportunities in the real estate market. But honestly, the best value for your money right now is in equities.
Yeah. Thank you for that plug, man. Yeah, no, that's good. So right now, like you were saying, there hasn't been a lot of buy and flip opportunities in the market. Right now, if someone was trying to start in the real estate game, or they were wanting to continue in the real estate game, in your mind, what is the prime market?
What I would do is look for rural areas and honestly look for abandoned mobile homes. The reason I suggest that is you can actually buy those on seller finance deals with no interest because a lot of people don't want them. Those older mobile homes, you can acquire the mobile home for a couple $1,000s, and like in areas out in Swansea, you may be able to acquire the land for $6,000 or $7,000 an acre. So you're all in at $9,000, and then you get skilled labor in there. You might have to put 20 in it, but you're at the end of it, you're all in at $30,000, and then you can rent them out for $700-800 a month. And your taxes on those mobile homes is less than $100 a year. So your return on investment is better there, because the key to success in real estate is keeping debt to a minimum and looking for opportunities where nobody else sees them, and keeping away from banks. If you have to borrow money, find private individuals that will loan you money, because it's very difficult to renegotiate a note with a bank. Now, banks don't necessarily like to hear this because banks make their money loaning you money, but the truth is, in a down market, it's very difficult to renegotiate with banks, which is why in 2008, a lot of people lost a lot of money because they weren't able to renegotiate their notes with the banks.
Wow. So you brought up the mobile home, and this made me, this is a question I think you and I have talked about it before. How does South Carolina look at it? If you've got a mobile home, you've got to register something with the DMV and the property, or is that's been outlawed, or what? You know what I'm talking about?
Well, yeah. So the mobile homes are like cars. They have titles, that are issued by the DMV unless you detitle them, and then the mobile home becomes permanently affixed to the land. A lot of people do that because if you have nicer mobile homes, like for instance double wides and stuff, people will detitle them and they will put what's called FHA footers on them, which that's the Federal Housing Administration. They guarantee mortgages for first-time home buyers and low-income homeowners. So if you're trying to get an FHA loan on them, then you're better off, detitling and stuff like that. But generally, that's correct. You have the title to the land and then the title to the mobile home. Another reason that there's opportunities with mobile homes is a lot of people lose the title to those things and don't know what to do with them. So the last one that I bought was actually given to me by a guy in Sumter. He gave me the mobile home to move it. So I moved it and we rehabbed it. And I have a little more than I wanted in that one because I ran into some unique problems with the sewer in the rural neighborhood where we put it. It was a neighborhood out in the country. And we had to run a sewer line under the road, which cost a lot of money. But I've got, I think, $46,000 in that unit, and it rents for $1,100 a month. And the taxes and insurance combined are like $300 a year.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. And all right. Let me make sure I heard you say this right. They gave you that one?
They gave me the mobile home to move it, yes, and so I paid to move it, and then we had to clear off the lot, and my partner had a connection on the lot, and so we paid $2,000 for the lot, and I got the mobile home for free, and then I knew the people that could help me move it and get the lot ready, but by the time everything was said and done, I had about $46,000 in it, but now that mobile home rents for $1,100 a month, and my taxes and insurance combined are like $250 a year.
All right. If you're listening to this and you want to give property away, let me know. Don't tell Ed. Let me know. I'll take it from you, and then I'll get Ed to show me how to run everything. So you just do that. Yeah. All right. Let me ask you this. So you love real estate. If I know one thing about Ed Teal, he loves real estate. You've been doing this for a while. Is there any type of real estate you would stay away from? And I mean anything from like, hey, stay away from Airbnbs or stay away from multifamily, or, what is something, if somebody is either in the game trying to build their business or they're trying to get started, what is something you would tell them not to do?
Generally, I've stayed away from condos because the regime fees are so high. Okay. Now, if you can buy them like in 2008, like when everybody was running, and beachfront condos, for instance, back then they were going for like $50,000. It was crazy. Oh my gosh. If you can buy them and resell them, you're better off. But it's generally, you're better off staying away from those because your regime fees are so high, especially if you want to buy them and rent them. Because actually, it's not uncommon to where your regime fee is half your rent. So I've generally stayed away from condos, but the best place to start, is mobile homes and single families because, let's face it, everybody's got to have a roof over their head. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, all right, let me ask you this. Your 100% of your income is coming from those rental properties that you have, correct? Like you're not doing any other work anywhere else?
Probably 95. I mean, I've got some, I've got a brokerage account that pays me, stock dividends, but all that's reinvested. So, yeah. I mean, that's taxable income, but I don't spend it.
Sure. So, man, I think for as long as I've known you, I've thought that that's just one of the coolest things is you wake up, you're smart, you go and buy rental properties. So, that's cool. I love the real estate that, you can buy these assets and it can pay you today while it appreciates. I think that's so cool. And now not everybody can go out and buy real estate. And that's why some people, I love the 401k, but some people will use the 401k and they can't afford to go and buy, real estate.
Right.
So, but we were talking about that. You also have a 401k, right?
Yes, I have an IRA and a 401k, both of which I manage, and those are in more traditional investments. And this is a shameless plug out there for anybody listening. If you're self-employed, have a 401k, because particularly if you don't have employees, because you can put in money as both the employer and the employee. Mm-hmm. For many people, it's like, I can put $24,000 in, or I think it's $23,500 right now as the employee. But if you are self-employed, I strongly encourage you to have a 401k, because you can put money as the as the employee and the employer. And I believe the maximum right now, provided you have the income, is you can put in up to $75,000 a year in a solo 401k. And so put away everything you can, but if you can't afford to max it out, I would say at a minimum, save 15% of your income and put it in some type of retirement account.
Not only is Ed into real estate, he's also a financial planner. Just that's great advice, Ed. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now we've talked a little bit about real estate and your assets and stuff. Now I want to switch gears and talk about a little, something else. As long as I have known you, you have lived with some type of disability, but I have never seen that stop you. I would like to ask you some questions about, life and living with disabilities, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So as long as I've known you, you have had a disability. Will you tell us about the disability that you had and how long you've had it for?
Yes, I have cerebral palsy. I was born at 26 weeks gestation period, so roughly 13 weeks early, and I was 4 pounds 4 ounces, and my lung collapsed, and as a result of that, essentially a stroke took place in my brain, which caused bleeding, and that's what caused my cerebral palsy. And depending on the side of the brain that's affected, it can affect a number of things. In my case, it affects my balance and my dexterity, and how much energy my body uses to function. Like, for instance, I use roughly 4 times as much energy as a normal person to walk. So if you walk 100 yards, if you walk 100 yards, for instance, if I walked that same length, it would be the equivalent of me walking 400 yards. But I still get out and, try to stay physically active and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But how it really affects me is balance and dexterity, and just my body wears out of energy much faster than the normal person's, but I live with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, you've come a long way with that, because at one point you were very heavily in a wheelchair, but now you just use your walking cane. Is that correct?
Well, I started on a posterior walker.
Okay.
I couldn't stand up very well, so they had me on a walker. And then I went from that to arm crutches that kind of went up almost past your elbow. And I had 2 of those. And then from that, I went to 2 quad canes. And then from that, I went to 2 regular canes. And now I walk with 1 cane. And hopefully eventually, I will be walking with nothing. I can still walk short distances without anything. But, longer distances, I still need 1 cane.
Yeah. So you never used a wheelchair?
When I had surgeries and stuff, I did.
Okay.
Or for long distances, like, for instance, in the airports, like, for expedience purposes. And I still have, an electric wheelchair that I use if I know I need to get somewhere quickly. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, it's 1 cane. Like, when I'm out looking at property, I just use 1 cane. And I hike, too. If I'm hiking a mile or less, I'll use 1 cane. If I'm going farther than a mile, then I actually have a custom all-terrain wheelchair that I helped design that I use.
You helped design the wheelchair?
Yes, I did. Back in college, I wanted to do an obstacle course race called Tough Mudder. They got bought out by Spartan Race, and there was nothing on the market at that time that would survive the course. And so A friend of mine who's a welder helped build it.
Get out of here.
And yeah, I did 2 or 3 of those back in college, and I've still got it. I still use that wheelchair from time to time for hiking and stuff like that.
That's awesome. So I don't want to be forward or anything, but it doesn't sound like the cerebral palsy has really prevented you from doing anything. It seems like you've still been able to get out and do the things that you want to do.
I figure out a way one way or the other, generally, to do what I want to do.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Your cerebral palsy, do you think it has helped or hurt you as far as building your business and accumulating wealth?
Well, it's certainly had its challenges, but it's kind of, you just had to think outside of the box. How can I make this work? So you just had to learn how to do things differently. That's how I would answer that.
Okay. So you've done well for yourself. Do you think you are the exception, or do you think that people with disabilities today in America can still be just as wealthy as you are?
Well, I think in a lot of regards, I am the exception because the system is stacked against people with disabilities, which is why one of my life goals is to create a charitable foundation that does what I do. I will probably do this later in life, probably in my 50s or 60s, because the problem you have is for a lot of people, getting into real estate is funding and know-how, and that's very much the case for people with disabilities. Over half of people with disabilities are underemployed. And most of them struggle to find work. And so what I would like to do is create a foundation that teaches people to do what I do. And the nice thing about leaving it in a foundation as opposed to a charitable trust is foundations don't pay taxes, and foundations can exist into perpetuity, whereas a charitable trust generally can only exist for 90 years after the trust creator dies. And so I'd like to create a foundation because it can exist for many decades after I'm gone, and it won't pay taxes. It will basically provide educational resources and funding to help those with disabilities do what I do.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. So you brought up 2 things that I actually have as questions later on, so we'll go ahead and get to them. You said the system is stacked against individuals with disabilities. Walk us through exactly what that means, because you and I have had this conversation before, but I think it's worth walking through it again for the audience.
Well, the big problem, particularly for residents of South Carolina, if you choose to collect disability benefits, is you can only collect, as of right now, $1,500 a month. So on average, you'll receive $1,500 a month as your stipend to live on, and then you can make, I believe it's either $1,200 or $1,500 beyond that to live on, but it's, or maybe less, I can't remember. But your stipend's $1,500 a month, and then if you earn beyond a certain amount, and I've got it at home on a piece of paper, I actually can't remember the exact figures, but if you earn beyond what the state allows you to make, then they start cutting your check. Well, the problem is, even if you collect $1,500 disability, and then you make, say, $1,000 in addition to that, when you consider the average rent in South Carolina is, $1,400-$1,500, it's very difficult to live. And then, like, a lot of people that have disabilities, like me, they can't drive. And so being able to live is very, very difficult. And so, and the mentality of the government in South Carolina is we want to keep people with disabilities working, but what they don't tell you is they want you to work just enough to keep your benefits. But if you work enough to get your benefits cut, they don't like that. And so you're in a situation where you're kind of trapped financially if you choose to take benefits, because you can't really live off of what the government pays you. And it's on paper, the state claims that they pay people $1,500 a month, but a lot of my tenants are on disability, and the reality is most tenants that I've seen, the maximum benefits, and most of them gets around, $900 a month, and you can't live on that. And so, and if they try to work to support themselves and make beyond what the state allows, then their checks get cut. And so in that regard, the system is very much stacked against people with disabilities. And then the other issue is resources. the state has tons and tons of people that they're trying to take care of that have disabilities, and the state has limited resources. In my experience, there's good nonprofits or organizations out there that help people with disabilities, but as a rule, the government doesn't do a very good job helping people with disabilities.
Or with anything else, really.
Yeah.
So, okay. At what point did you say, all right, no, hey, $1,500 a month from the government is not going to be good enough for me. I want to go out and build something. When did you make that decision, and what was like the catalyst for you to switch your mind? Because in my mind, obviously, I don't live with cerebral palsy, but I would feel like it would be very easy that if I was dealt the same cards you were, that I would kind of, lay down and just say, all right, hey, this is my life. I'm going to live off of $1,500. What happened, and when did it happen for you to kind of shift your mindset and say, hey, that's not going to be me?
Well, going back to when I was probably a freshman in high school, I knew that I wanted to have my own business. I knew I wanted to work for myself. And I think a lot of it was, my grandmother was in real estate. My father was a dentist. He was in private practice. My grandfather owned multiple businesses. So I grew up around entrepreneurship all my life. And so and I think, excelling was what was expected. And I just, never gave it a second thought. And, as I got older, and I started looking at the actual numbers behind this, I'm like, it makes no sense if I can figure out a way to make a living myself to take government benefits, because I would handicap myself further if I do that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Whether it is, friends, family, or other people you meet in the professional world, do you think people underestimate you because of the disability you have?
Yeah, most definitely. They do. I've had that happen, and you just have to, give people some grace and, answer them gently and, try to reflect on the teachings of Scripture, when you're dealing with difficult people like that. I reflect on Proverbs a lot and think, what is the best way to deal with this difficult situation? And so the Bible and reading the Bible has helped me a lot in learning how to deal with difficult people that underestimate me.
Yeah. So you brought up the Bible, so I'm gonna dive in a little bit deeper with that. You're a believer, I'm a believer, we both know that. How has your faith and your relationship with the Lord affected not only your daily life with cerebral palsy, but also the pursuit of wealth?
Well, it's, Scripture says the love of money is the root of all evil. And so, as I'm pursuing wealth, I'm always like, Lord, I want to do this as long as you want me to do this, but you kind of have to hold it with an open hand and say, Lord, if you're calling me another way, you are calling me to do something else, make it known, and you just have to pray a lot. And also, there's a book out there by Randy Alcorn called The Treasure Principle, and you have to remember that everything that we have belongs to God, and we're called to be stewards of it, which is why, I'm not just working so that I can retire well one day. Part of the reason that, I see myself working longer than most people probably would is I want to make sure that the foundation is set up so that I leave a legacy, because leaving a legacy is what's important, Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, I know you mentioned setting up that foundation. I've known you've wanted to do that for a few years. What kind of legacy do you want to leave for people? Is it the foundation? Is it something over and above that? What do you want?
Well, beyond the foundation, I also want to be known as someone that helps people. In my business, I deal with a lot of people that are losing their homes, and I help people that, if I can, to keep their homes. And so I want to be known as somebody that honored God in a very difficult business. When people are losing their homes, you're dealing with people that are at the end of their road. And so I want to be known as somebody that honored God and was honorable in the way that I dealt with people. And I also want to be known as someone that helped people achieve that otherwise couldn't. Honestly, if I didn't have the backing of my family, I probably wouldn't be where I am, which is why I want to start the foundation. And then, beyond that, I don't have any children. I'm not married, so I would like to leave something to help my nieces and nephews, going forward too. And that's, I'm still ironing out the details of that. As to, how I'm going to update my estate plan.
Yeah.
And another thing I'd like to do is I'm a CIU alum, and I appreciate the things I learned about the Lord and about the Word, and so I would certainly like to continue to support CIU.
That's awesome.
Till long after I'm gone.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So speaking of your nieces and your nephews, and any future children you have, what is something that if you could tell them, hey, even when the odds are stacked against you, what is some encouragement that you would give them?
I have to think on that for a minute.
That's all right. We didn't prepare for these questions. I'm blindsiding him with all of them, so that's fine.
I would say, surround yourself with successful, godly people that that not only modeled success in business, but also had a good family life. And surround yourself with these people that are older than you. And when you don't know how to handle a difficult situation, have these core group of people around you, because you can read books and you can even read scripture, and there's a lot of great principles within scripture, but learning how to apply Bible principles in difficult situations only comes with practice. So always have mentors in your life that have accomplished what you want to accomplish. Like in my case, I'm a real estate guy, so I have a mentor who mentors me. Find somebody that is where you want to be 20, 30 years down the road, and have these people mentor you, because there's only so much you can learn from reading books.
Yeah.
You learn the most from life experience.
That's good. That's good. I have got two more questions that I want to ask you, but we'll use those to wrap up. Before we get to those questions, is there anything else you want to share about real estate in general, or, overcoming living with disabilities?
I would say to people out there that don't think that, having an independent life is possible, I would say that it is. And, there again, if you have a disability, seek people like me out that desire to have a career there. And one organization that I would strongly recommend that anyone with disabilities get involved in is called ABLE South Carolina. They really help people with to get employed, and they also help people with time management skills. They help me with my planning system that I use. And so I would encourage anyone that's out there that has a disability, that has a desire to have a career, is, get involved with ABLE South Carolina, and also seek out other people with disabilities that are pursuing a career that you would like to pursue.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So for the final two questions, and you kind of already hit on this one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If someone is listening and they are living with disabilities and they are broke and they don't have any hope, what is the first step that they can take to change the rest of their life?
Well, I mean, if you're broke, look at, if all you have is disability, look at your income and say, okay, this is what I make, and have a budget. Give every dollar a job. Mm-hmm. And even if all you get is $900 a month, at least save 15% of that, put it in savings, get an emergency, get some kind of an emergency fund established. And then, depending on what their disability is, look at, make a list of things you enjoy, and look at, okay, these are the things that I enjoy, these are the things that I'm good at. And then, through that, I would honestly tell them, give me a call, and we could come up with a business model.
Yeah.
Because for each person, it kind of varies as to what but that's the first thing I would tell them: get on a budget, and so that where every dollar that you have coming in is going, and pay down consumer debt first, and then save at least 10% of your income.
That's good. That's good. All right. Final question, and then we'll wrap it up here. Since this podcast is My Father Said, it's faith, family, and finance, what is the single best piece of advice your father has ever given you?
Ooh, that's hard. I've known my father a long time, and he's played a critical role in my life.
Yep.
I don't know if it was necessarily a piece of advice, but it was rather to treat people the way you wanted to be treated and to serve people that are less fortunate. My father was a dentist for 32 years, and he did a free dental day once a year for people that made too much money to be on Medicaid, but not enough to have private insurance. And so he would help people that otherwise couldn't help themselves. And I think just seeing that modeled, serving other people and learning to take what you have and serve the least of these, that's probably the most important life lesson my dad taught me.
Hey, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's good stuff. Yeah, your dad's a good dude. I like old Wes, so that's good. All right, so with that, this has been another episode of the My Father Said podcast. If you are listening today and you want to get in touch with Ed, we are going to put his contact information in there. Feel free to reach out to him.
Yeah.
What?
Sorry. So Ed, how can we find more?
Ed, how can we find more about you, man?
Well, I've got a website, but honestly, I would just call my and I've got a Facebook page, but honestly, call my work phone number. It's 843-283-2507.
Okay.
And that's my business phone. You can call me, and I'm the kind of person that if I can help somebody, I'm the kind of person that will meet them for coffee and think through their situation and do what I can to help them.
Yeah. Ed is a good dude. That is truer words were never spoken. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to Ed. He is an open book, loves people. He'd love to talk with you. And then some of the other stuff we talked about, if you're sitting here and you're thinking about that 401k that Ed brought up or Ryan brought up, if you need help implementing that, or reach out to us and we can help you get that squared away. And I would be remiss if I did not bring this up. Since Robert is not here on this podcast, I thought about not mentioning the book, but he would not let that go if I didn't mention the book. So if you liked some of the principles that Ed talked about and some of the principles that we talked about, we have got our book, Financial Harmony, Personal Fulfillment, available on Amazon. If you want to purchase that and learn a little bit more about the principles and the truths that we have here at the Templeton Group. So with that, I'm Ryan. This was Ed. We'll see you guys next time.
The opinions voiced in this video are for general information only and are not specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful.